So,
Who are you?
oh, Brian Douglas, sorry.
Are you
I
affiliated with a group?
just am independent. In your opening statement, you said that for the affidavit review process, it was intensive and went over and above your standard routine process. I was just curious, what qualified it as intensive and over and above?
The amount of work that we had to do to complete the process.
Yeah, I mean, what would, like it, with one affidavit, what would be the routine process versus what in this instance qualified it as intensive?
Under the normal circumstances, there would be a review that would be based on the records that we have in the computer, and an individual worker would simply make a notation on the, well, I understand, but the workers would make notations on the form versus valid versus invalid. What we did under these circumstances for the invalid affidavits, in addition, we printed every document that we have in the system for a voter, which includes voter data, activity reports, any changes that the board may have made over the course of time, poll site changes, address changes, that kind of thing, voter history, and any document that's in the system, which could be as minimal as a single voter registration card, a buff card, or scanned in pieces of mail that were returned. You know, there's different documents that could be in there. We printed up all of that documentation and are keeping that within the retention requirements for election material for 2 years with the affidavit. If that affidavit was ultimately determined to be valid, then it went from the presumptively invalid pile to the valid pile, and it will stay with that affidavit. And if they remain invalid after the review, where they'll stay there for the 2-year retention requirement. Now, to put that in perspective, I was asked by the State Attorney General's office to review 176 voters based on complaints that they had received. We did a similar review process for the 176 voters, and that stack of paper that we turned over to the Attorney General's office was almost 10 inches high for 176 voters. Now, if you extrapolate that out over, 20,000 affidavits, and then times that by the number of, the number that we did in each borough. I mean, at Brooklyn was over.
Citywide, it was 120,000, roughly.
But I don't have the invalidated affidavits committed to memory.
No, I mean the total.
The total number of affidavits was in that range. Was
the invalidated, I think, was around 90.
Yeah, you might be right. I'm not remembering it specifically, but the point is, 70,000, 80,000, 90,000. That's a lot of paper, and each of those affidavits was then given secondary and tertiary screening to make sure that if we were invalidating that affidavit, that it was proper to invalidate it and that it could survive ultimate legal scrutiny, whether that came from a challenge by a voter that indicated that their invalid affidavit should have been validated, or through some alternative review process that might be conducted by either the Attorney General's office, the City Comptroller, or whomever else may want to take a look at it.
How many staff members were dedicated to this during that audit?
We could get you specific numbers based on each individual borough, but I can also tell you that in the high volume boroughs, we moved staff around from individual boroughs to go assist the boroughs that had.
Who can I speak to get just the number of staff that were working on that?
We can talk to Val, and we can get it to you over the course of the next several days. But keep in mind, whatever we give to you would be a snapshot, and it would not capture the extra teams that we may have sent. Say, like I know specifically we did Manhattan and Brooklyn received extra help from other boroughs once their work was completed. So it was an all hands on deck, situation to make sure that whatever we did after the problem was identified, that we did it with as much scrutiny as we possibly could.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner Ryan.
Are you addressing this as a citizen or as a member of the press?
I'm going to ask the question because I keep asking and I haven't gotten an answer from it yet. Bridget Bergen, WNYC. I'm looking for the report of affidavit ballots. How many were cast citywide, by borough, how many were valid and how many were invalid. You
Right.
said you had it Friday, and that you would give it to me on Friday.
Yes, okay. We'll double check before you leave here. I
We'll get it
presume
today.
I presume you're
Today.
gonna be here?
Yep.
I heard the question
Okay.
first 3 times you asked it.
Well,
Okay.
I've asked it for
No,
2
I-
weeks
I
and haven't got,
understand.
and, you know,
I understand the nature of your inquiry,
great.
okay?
Okay, so we're gonna go into executive session for personnel. I don't believe there's any litigation to discuss.
Before you do that, I have 15 seconds. I've been reading the press about spectators and criticism of the press, both of the board. But as I do agree, there's merit to Ryan's statements, because if they are familiar with the process, they'll know right today at the Staten Island Borough office, they found behind a radiator an absentee ballot. This always